Land was allocated specifically for the use of Native Americans in 1763 when King George III issued a royal proclamation in which the British limited the settlement of Europeans to lands east of the Appalachian Mountains. When the Revolutionary War ended in 1783 and America established its independence, the proclamation was ignored by settlers who continued to expand westwards into native lands. Native American tribes had long-standing agreements with the British government and very little interactions with European American colonists. The influx of American settlers after the Revolutionary War intensified the armed conflict between Native Americans and colonists that had been going on since the time of early European settlement in the 17th century. These conflicts became known as the Indian Wars. In 1830, spurred by white settlers who sought access to fertile lands east of the Mississippi, Andrew Jackson signed into law the Indian Removal Act, which forced upwards of 60,000 Native Americans off their lands and into government-designated territory that spanned present-day Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, and parts of Iowa.
The Indian Territory was set aside for the Native Americans initially that came out of the Southeast. So we're talking about Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, North Carolina. And those Indians were the Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Creek, and the Seminole.
These tribes were known as the Five Civilized Tribes due to their adoption of European customs and societal structures. The forced relocation, known infamously as the Trail of Tears, was marked by hardship, suffering, and death. The Indian Territory, often unfamiliar and inhospitable, posed a major challenge to the tribes. Despite these adversities, they integrated their cultural traditions into the new environment. In a complex and often overlooked chapter of American history, the enslavement of blacks was prevalent among the Five Civilized Tribes.
They had plantations in the South before they were moved to the Indian Territory. And mainly, they embraced chattel slavery. And so when they were forced to go to the Indian Territory, they took their African-American slaves with them to the Indian Territory.
Enslaved blacks in the Indian Territory worked in fields, homes, and businesses, their lives bearing a haunting resemblance to slaves on the plantations of the Deep South. Native American slaveholders, such as Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation, John Ross, Seminole Chief, John Jumper, and Cherokee Chief, later Confederate General, Stand Watie, exemplify the close ties between the Native American leadership of the Five Civilized Tribes and the slave-holding planter class of the South. Born in 1800, Choctaw Chief Greenwood Laflore was the son of a high-ranking Choctaw mother and a French fur trader. He was a prominent antebellum figure among the Mississippi planter elite. On his vast estates, over 400 enslaved Africans lived and toiled in bondage. In 1830, Laflore signed the Treaty of Dancing Rabbit Creek, a momentous act that would dispossess the Choctaw of their ancestral homelands, propelling many on the Trail of Tears. As the Choctaw were forced off their lands to face an uncertain future in the West, Laflore remained in Mississippi at his plantation, Malmaison. He sided with the Union against secession and died a few months after the war ended in 1865. He was buried on his Mississippi estate, his body wrapped in the American flag.